time in our limited perception, while we are in a dormant unconscious state, seems to be linear. Okay, and when you wake up consciousness, you begin to realize that you exist in more than one dimension, and actually time is more spherical. It's more of a spherical model. And what that means is that you are existing simultaneously in this present moment in more than one dimension. In fact, we are moving in and out of dimensions constantly based on our projections, based on our frequencies, which are all participant of this creation of hologram. So I was raised in a very spiritual family. Thankfully, my original roots started, in kind of a journey of discovering and learning about different religions from around the world in alignment with my parents as a child. I was raised in a Catholic school, all girls Catholic school, but then got into some Gnosticism and then went into Buddhism, Zen, Sufism, Zoroastrianism, just began to kind of go really deep into Taoism and all of these different religions. And even though in those depths of those religions, I found that I was not having my questions answered when I got to a younger adult age. Then, of course, life started to unfold. It's masterful plan of evolution, and I began to have interesting life experiences. I had funded in 2008. By the time I was already in my early 20s, I began to meditate deeper into that practice, and I learned from a friend, a shaman, who began to teach me some energy. He was an energy cultivation shaman. And so I learned how to meditate from him, and I began to meditate, and I noticed that it changed my life. And I just wanted to share that with others. I simply just wanted to meditate with others and see if others would benefit from the meditation as much as I did. And it was a meetup group that started with 5 people and ended up in about 1,000 people. And from there, it turned into kind of a business because they would invite me into their companies here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I was invited into Google, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, all these companies here.
Can I stop you there for 1 second?
Yeah.
So when you started that as a company, had you had your experience already before it became a company, your ET experience as well?
Yes. So let me tell you about that. First of all, I've had experiences since the age of 5, but Really? Talking about these different religions, my perception was completely far away from any idea of aliens or ET contact or anything like that. The closest that I could translate my experiences was the idea or the concept of angelic beings or light beings, something like this. They never manifested to me in any form of like a Jesus or a Buddha or anything like this. As a child, and of course at the age of 5, having that first experience of a bright light in my room, missing time, and then incredible memories of dreams and visions of interacting with these light beings or these formless beings. And then combined with that missing time, which was interesting. Then again, in 2000, when I was 16, I lived in South America. I was going to school in that all-girls Catholic school, and then having missing time again. And walking down a cobblestone street, and next thing I know, I'm waking up in my bed at 3 a.m. I don't know how I got home. Nobody saw me. Nobody remembers anything.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but having those incredible memories of those visions of interacting with these massive beings. And, that was an interesting experience, being blindfolded in water inside of a cave and participating in some kind of remote viewing sessions.
Wow.
So it was weird to have that kind of a dream that was very specific and
Oh, can I ask you something? Sorry, I just got
yeah,
super excited about something. So, Jimmy's told me about the secret space program, and we've been
yes.
interviewing a few people involved in that. And I'm wondering if maybe you had some involvement with that.
Yes, I don't speak a lot about that just because uh, I don't really want to go too much down that path too much because I feel that some of it sometimes tends to be a distraction from really important stuff that I want to share about
Yeah.
spiritual evolution. But it is a very, very real phenomena. It is a very real part of our multidimensionality, and it has a lot to do with parasitism, but also at the same time, our unconscious states when we leave the body. Okay, so I was actually part of many of those programs, taken to Antarctica, and this is at a very young age, having dreams of being taken into underground, military bases, and then, just remembering snow and in these massive military systems and being lined up with other children that were unconscious, like, not really aware of why they were
Mhm.
there, and then being used for psychic abilities.
Yeah.
Um, I also have memories. These are not dreams, but memories of being taken out of class and taken into special testing of my five senses. And when I talk to other classmates, nobody ever had those tests in the class. Nobody ever else remembers having had those kinds of tests. And it was very much psychological evaluation kind of test, and it was very much an evaluation to see your psychic abilities, because they would hold ink blots or they would hold cards, and I would have to guess what was on the other side of that, and so those were very, very vivid dreams in childhood. Now here in the States, when I was going to a private Lutheran school, just simply because my parents were under the impression that private school is better education. So the Lutheran school was the only available one. And so that's why I attended that. And that's where those tests would happen periodically. But, I tried to go back to the teachers and to speak with them, and nobody ever remembers, though, but they were so vivid. And so, these kinds of programs. And later on, having very incredible experiences of um, at a younger age, maybe 20, maybe 21, 22, having a dream of, not a dream, but actually becoming pregnant, and having dreams of being on board slabs and then being surrounded by beings. And then they would extract or work with my body in some way that I'm not very aware of. And, these little images and memories throughout my life, that were also in combination with physical ailments. Later on in years later, when I was 23 or 22, I remember becoming very ill with some illness that could not be identified. They thought it was an amoeba, something was attacking my body, but they couldn't identify what kind it was. And then after trying every possible medication to try to heal me from this, for weeks, the doctor basically says, you basically have 3 months to live if you don't recover from this. And then a couple days later, I have a dream with a white light comes down on me, touches my forehead, and the next day everything is completely gone. I visit the doctor again, they check everything back to normal. They can't find any signs of any distress inside the body. I mean, it was a really bad. There was internal bleeding. There was like all kinds of irregularities in the body that they could not explain, but everything was 100% back to normal. And the doctor said, look, I don't know how to explain this, but thankfully, you're not dying anymore, And so at that point, with all the medical bills and the stress and the family coming to say goodbye, we didn't really, you don't think about the dream that you had. You just don't understand that that is a very relevant part of your reality, and so it took time, and it wasn't until later that those pieces of my life started to make sense, and I began to understand what we were dealing with, through all those experiences. So yeah.
I had something similar, like not the same thing, but similar. It took me a couple years to figure out the same thing, like what the symbolism was in the dreams that I had. Like
Yeah,
it took years, and then when I looked back, I went, "Oh my God, that's what that really meant." So yeah, it was
exactly.
incredible.
Yeah, and also we don't have the language, we don't have the vocabulary. I mean, it wasn't, I mean, even after my contact experience, I didn't know what to call what I had experienced until I started to research. And I mean, after my contact experience in 2013, I just went online. I looked for UFO sightings in my area. I did find them. I looked for alien babies, alien children. I mean, you just don't know what to look up, to find this information. And for me, going to the support group years after it even
Mm.
happened was actually when I finally began to meet others that had had this experience and can explain, already having been in that field a little longer than me. And that's when things started to become clear. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Wh-
yeah. And
When
so,
when
mhm.
did your memories start to unfold of the actual specifics to what happened? Because you seem to understand or recall, how many children you had had and where you were. How did that all unfold?
Yeah, so there are steps to the memory. So the memories in those actual experiences were memories that we call them marker memories in the support group. So I have an international support group now, but marker memories, they feel as if they're realer than real life, and there are usually several elements to these kinds of memories. They include physical, emotional, and psychological, and of course these interdimensional elements to them. And so these kind of memories that I could not forget, I couldn't forget them. I couldn't, and I'm talking the white light in the room, missing time, and that image. Just you can forget any number of memories from childhood, but these you just won't forget. And so they are called marker memories. And so later on in 2017, I decided to get a hypnotherapy to try to get more clarity on, what was happening. And I had been meditating, doing more internal shadow work. And I think one of the reasons why I was not terribly traumatized by these experiences was because of the strong spiritual foundation that I built within myself, trying to be in as much of a zero point as possible. And that did help me a lot, kind of create a pure channel in which my emotions weren't tainting my experiences, or I wasn't trying to manipulate, the kind of information that I was having. So in 2017, when I had the hypnotherapy, I began to channel information. Basically, I was shown an entire global map about the origin of human race. My question was, what is this hybridization program? What is it about? What's our participation? Where's the free will element to that? And it began to kind of take me back to the origin of the human race. And that's when the memories started to really get extremely clear, because I began to understand kind of a puzzle piece. And mind you, during all these years, I mean, in my career, I also had an event planning company at the same time. I stayed away from film, stayed away from music. I mean, I was completely in a kind of um, isolation of all of
Mm.
those things in order to try to sustain this connection with myself and clarity, really. But yeah, then I think I have 7 or 8 hypnotherapies, and they are all public. You can hear them and see them as they have evolved in the information, and kind of piece together, these memories, including how many children I had and what was happening. Mhm.
I ask you a question. So when you talk about free will and stuff, I'm wondering how much of this was like agreed upon by you before you came here? Like,
Yeah,
and are you in fact part of that group of extraterrestrial? Like, does your,
excellent.
history go back?
Yeah. Okay, so to talk about this topic, we have to get into understanding a little depth about, what the human race is. And first of all, when we incarnate into this three-dimensional plane, there are certain laws that are the foundation of this experience in a 3D. And one of those laws and one of those intentions as a manifestation of this physical life is that you are a creator. The human is a creator, it's inherently a creator. And so that means that we are creating with the words that we speak, the forms and the sounds and the frequencies that are created from the voice and the words and the intentions are all actual creations. Our vibrational frequency, our presence, our state in the waking state, which is right here, me and you, but also we are existing in several dream states. Not just what we believe is a waking state is really also a dream state, because of the nature of this construct, which is very much holographic. And so that means that due to this holographic nature, there are certain laws of creation and how we manifest. We are abiding by the law of three, which represents the integration of the mother and father, which then creates the third. So not only are we the third, but our entire experience in multiple dimensions are the third in this case. And so that being said, that being said, you know, our understanding of what is happening in regards to time in our limited perception while we are in a dormant unconscious state seems to be linear. Okay, and when you wake up consciousness, you begin to realize that you exist in more than one dimension, and actually time is more spherical. It's more of a spherical model. And what that means is that you are existing simultaneously in this present moment in more than one dimension. In fact, we are moving in and out of dimensions constantly based on our projections, based on our frequencies, which are all participant of this creation of hologram.
So are you saying in a sense that everything that could be our potential already exists out there, through these multiple realities, timelines, cycles maybe? How can we jump those timelines or bring those timelines forward, the better potentials of possibility for us, I guess? I don't even know how to ask that question.
Exactly.
Like
and
higher time. Yeah.
yes. Well, yeah, because of the physics, because there are certain laws to this holographic system, we kind of abide by certain physical laws, okay? And so it's about frequency, okay? So where we are projecting from, you are the center of projection. And you, most of the time, humans are unconscious. It's very difficult for the human to regain consciousness. We might wake up for a few minutes, we might be fully in the body, fully presently aware, but next 5 minutes you might forget. You know, you might just get distracted by something and you forget. So what happens?
Kind of like, from, if I can give an example, like I'll be washing the dishes and then suddenly I'll catch myself thinking, I'm like, why am I thinking that? And is that
Correct.
where you're aware, so to speak, and in the physical body?
Yes, exactly. And so the moment that you start to have those thoughts, several things can happen. There's brainwave states that are shifting, frequency in your body that is shifting, and your body is very much a multidimensional organism of there is a certain geometrical shape and expression that your body takes because it's a form of frequency. And so we open and close our multidimensional body to be in alignment with certain timelines that are in alignment with our frequency. So those thoughts, those ideas that come into your mind, those images, the imaginations, you know, they are picking up based on your frequency. And so the same is true for dream state. And just to answer James' earlier question, you know, what we understand now is that this is such a co-creative process in many dimensions, that in reality, we are deeply interdependent to one another. And this is also true biologically. I mean, just genetically in our DNA, you and I have a relative in common just 2,000 years ago. You know, so what that means is that interconnected interdependence kind of creates a collective subconscious in which we are looking at things through symbolism, and that symbolism is organized in archetypes. That those archetypes are frequencies. we are kind of moving through this information in order to make sense of these projections that we're creating, but they're very much collective. So one of the things that this realm, this three-dimensional realm, is about creation. It's about birthing life. It's about sustainability of life, which is based on the unification of male and female, masculine and feminine energy that creates the third. And so, you know, for that creation, we are through our reproduction, to the reproduction of humans, and procreation, and creation, we are sustaining this matrix. Okay, so we anchor life and sustain life into the reincarnation cycle through the children that we bring in, so in the physical, which are also hybrids, because genetically we hold within us, as I was mentioning, those archetypal aspects. We are made of all of them. Okay, we are cycling through those archetypal aspects. Those archetypal aspects from which this universe seems to self-organize itself in frequency can be seen as these beings that we are interacting with. Okay, and over time, humanity has organized these archetypal aspects as certain beings. So there's a certain hierarchical realm of these beings that we are interacting with, everything from the Greys to the Anunnakis to the Reptilians, Draconians, Arcturians, Pleiadians, Lyrans, you name it. All of these familiar races that are our cousins, essentially, our genetic and interdimensional cosmic cousins, are definitely embedded within our genetic code. And my research and what I'm doing with my experiencers is I discover that in reality, contactees, they are expressing these experiences because it's something that is activated within the DNA. The dormant aspects of themselves begin to remember themselves as these archetypal levels of themselves. And within those ranges of frequencies, it can be a gray lineage that runs down your bloodline. It can be an Arcturian bloodline that is now becoming expressed because you're changing your frequency, which is somewhat an activation of your DNA, an awareness of your information. And so another reason why, you know, we're seeing that these actually run in the bloodline is that experiencers are experiencing with certain groups of beings, okay? And their mother is also experiencing with those groups of beings. Their grandmother is experiencing, the little child that is born, their little grandchild is experiencing them. And so when we have, you know, interviewed several of these families, it's very interesting to see that individually in their own private sessions, they're drawing and they're describing the beings that they're seeing very similarly. And these are more than one experiences. These are more than one memories that are coming up, and these people are not talking to each other about them. But, you know, they, for example, even in my own family, you know, every one of my family members has discussed contact with blue beings, Pleiadian beings, beings that look like ants, beings that look like mantids. And so, you know, you start having these kinds of very prominent symbols that are expressed through the subconscious mind of these members, these family members, that seems to be an innate part of them. So, you know, councils and things like this that people claim to experience connection and communication with councils seem to be kind of like a genetic holographic expression of all the potential bloodlines that make up those family ancestral lineages. So ancestry is not just human genetic ancestry, it's multidimensional ancestry that becomes expressed. And so to answer the question about free will, that being said, as you can see how deeply interconnected we are with one another, and we seem to experience these out-of-body experiences and interdimensional experiences with familiar frequencies. So there, based on my research and what I'm understanding here, is that there really is no free will, but there are certain laws of co-creation. And so some of these experiences are things that are not happening in this moment or even in this lifetime. They are things that are happening in simultaneous lifetimes, but there is bleed through because of the frequency of the experiencer. And we are even experiencing the pregnancies. Okay, we are even experiencing, for both men and women, they're experiencing side effects that are both biological, physical, and psychological. And so, yeah, so it's a very interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, that
That's incredible.
Indeed,
I'm
yeah.
like, shit, where do I go with this? This is wild. This is really amazing.
That was incredible.
How can we, awaken our dormant DNA? How do we even begin to become aware of it?
Yeah, so the goal, so taking a look at, what would be the goal of the bigger picture, it's not so much that you are trying to wake up your DNA, because DNA is just the blueprint of your entire organism.
All
And
right.
2% of the DNA is writing this physical vessel, all of the complexities of this organism, this physical organism. The rest of that DNA, which is called junk DNA or dark DNA, simply because it's not possible to trace, the genetic connection between the markers that are being turned on and the actual physical protein writing output. And so, what science is now bringing forth is research on the morphogenetic field, which allows us to have a very clear understanding that there is more to this human organism that is part, and it has several holographic processes that we are just coming to understand. And our body is very much a hologram. We have phantom limb, which means that even when a body, part of the body is severed or disconnected from the body, there is still intercommunication and sensations, between the fingers. Even if they don't exist and are connected to the body, we still have a network of communication in the body that exists regardless of that. We also see that with implanted organs, memories that are expressed in implanted organs in someone else's body. So there is a network here. There is, and that is called the morphogenetic field. The morphogenetic field, in other words, is an instruction manual of what is brought into form. Okay, and in ancient Sanskrit and in the Hindu original medicines, we call that the nadis, right? Which are vortices of life force that bring forth this organism. In Taoism, we call them the networks of energy systems, right? We have acupuncture, the ley lines of the body, the energy runways of the body. And so these are ancient practices and ancient awareness of our multidimensional body, which people have been studying for centuries and centuries. This has been known, before this science is coming into play. So, I think the wisdom of the body is something that it reveals itself to us the more that we sit in that silence, in that connection to ourself, in that stillness, to begin to observe these interconnections between mind, body, and soul, or the non-physical element of ourselves. And memory is stored holographically in the body. Okay, so we actually are processing systems. We kind of operate like 360-degree processing systems that are picking up memories of all of our environment, whether we are conscious of that or not. So in order to, let's say, activate DNA, in other words, the first key is absolute embodiment in this physical body in the present moment, which allows you to begin to cultivate the integration of your lower centers, the root, sacral, solar chakra, and the integration of that creates the lower dantian, which dantian means energy center. These energy centers are essential to cultivation of a frequency that allows you to interact in these interdimensional realms and to see yourself as more than just the physical body, with the physical identity or the personalities or everything that you have formulated as a part of this construct
I just wanted to say everything you're saying makes sense, because Jimmy, he told me to do a meditation focusing on my crown chakra. And he said, I want you to visualize a figure of eight, an infinity sign, and any darkness in that chakra, you want to send it into the infinity sign and shoot it off, like using visualization, and put it into a Merkaba and see it explode into stardust or whatever. I had an out of body experience because of that. And so when you were talking about working on the lower centers, that's what caused me to have my first out of body experience as an adult. So yeah, I thought I'd bring that up. Yeah, it was amazing.
Amazing, Natalie. I'm so glad you shared that, because what I found to be interesting, and I just want to mention that, all of these cultivation practices that I now teach people, these are things that, you really cannot find it in a book. Like these are ancient knowledge that have been known for such a long time, but it's within us. And I know this for a fact. I mean, this is how I came across this information, is by sitting in stillness and meditation and learning about my multidimensional body. And when we look back at all these ancient sages and incredible minds through history that have also reached this awareness, that's how they also reached it. So in other words, it's encoded within your own blueprint of your body, your wisdom. That's why it's extremely important for you, rather than learning externally or reading, it's the embodiment of that. It's the practice and the self-knowledge that has to be cultivated through the connection of the self. What was your other question about the multidimensional body? I don't want to lose thought here.
I can't even remember.
How to activate DNA, right? Yes. So yes. So to activate DNA simply means this. First of all, as you are integrating these main energy centers, you have your upper, your middle, your lower dantian. The key to the integration of this body is through the heart. Okay, it's love.
Yeah.
It's your ability to cultivate unconditional love. And the heart chakra in itself is actually the largest magnetic field in your body. And our bodies create the Merkaba, as James just mentioned earlier. The Merkaba is a cultivation and a clearing of deprogramming of matrix programming in order for you to become a conduit. And when you become a conduit, you can then process higher bands of frequency to your body. Sitting in meditation, training yourself to meditate allows you to grow gray matter in your brain, but prolonged states of meditation helps you grow gray matter in your spinal cord all the way down the spine.
Kundalini, is that the same thing as Kundalini as well?
Yeah, well, Kundalini, Kundalini is simply life force, just represents life force. And in reality, the utilization and the alchemization of your primordial life force, which is this exact creative life force that we're talking about, your sexual energy, is the most powerful energy of your organism. But I want to mention that there are many centers that have to be activated with like Kundalini. People talk about Kundalini awakenings, but we have 7 to go.
I was going to say, I've heard someone, sorry to cut you off, but maybe I could ask you if this is valid, but I've heard that every chakra is a sexual center. And I was like, what? Like the stomach is sexual, that like all of them have like a sexual energy or a sexual nature to it. And I was like, that I've never heard that before.
Well, that might be a little confusing, but to say that it's a sexual center, but well, there's biological, sexual, like the sexual element that's biological. And then of course there's the energetic element of that. And if maybe what they mean, I'm not sure what they mean by that exactly. Because everything is dualistic, and the integration of that duality within each one of those centers is the balancing of and the harmonizing of those energies, which allows you to work with that energy.
Oh, right.
So the disharmony in those centers would be separation, would be imbalance, right? So and it would be the imbalance of the feminine and masculine energies of those centers. So in a way, if they are talking about the alchemical marriage of those centers in bringing it into harmony, then yes, you can say it would be somewhat a sexual organ, in that it becomes a conduit for creation. Yeah.
Right.
And so ultimately, the idea is that we deprogram really stagnant belief systems, limiting belief systems that don't allow you to become a conduit, harmonized internally, harmonized with your external, and then of course creating harmony interdimensionally, which is what this new era is all about. And this is why it's so important to have these conversations, because ET contact, or contact of your interdimensional fractals, is all about the cultivation of your life force. Awareness of where you are holding your intention, your ability to be present in this waking state allows you to become present and conscious in your dream state. And only then can you begin to have any level of free will.
Ooh, that would be an incredible manifestation. You know what I mean? Like if you're able to tap into that dream state and be aware of it, that's like
Right.
next level.
Yeah, and actually it's one of the most important things of this era that we're coming into. Exactly, it's a dream, just like ours. So we learn to become lucid. We become lucid in this dream, and you become lucid in all the dreams that you are in. And the purpose of that is that you become aware of your purpose, because otherwise we end up entangled in lower frequency, lower consciousness experiences that keep us stuck. And people wonder, why we are deeply ill, why we are stuck, why we can't change our life. Well, there's many parts of us that have to wake up in lucidity in order to begin to transform yourself into a creator.
And so deprogramming, that would be like essentially coming away from the hive mind or the collective consciousness that we're all stuck in within this matrix. And so would you say that meditation is really like first and foremost what we need to do to deprogram this matrix system and start to become more aware and conscious, and then align to our, I think you said 0 point energy or oneness?
Yeah.
Create a version of ourselves.
Absolutely. I think really what we want to focus on is, and let me just clarify, hive mind and then unity consciousness. People can become confused about this, because what we're actually talking about is that you wake up from the hypnosis of the hive mind of separation. Okay, so within this matrix, we come into amnesia the moment that we're born. We forget who we are. We forget how expansive and how we exist in many dimensions simultaneously. All of that is erased through the trauma of birth. And then we are deeply programmed to the age of 7, which creates our personality, which creates our form, our base foundation for our perception of ourselves and the world outside of us, both in this waking state and in dream states. So those programs have to be, and most of these programs are the inversions of nature and natural laws of this universe, because they are all based on survival. They are all based on separation programs, compartmentalized belief systems, age, sex, race, culture, society, financial, status, all these things that deeply fractalize the human further and further. We have to reverse that back into unity awareness of yourself, and then unity consciousness as you begin to become aware of yourself deeply interconnected to others. And this is where the human can begin to explore compassion, begin to explore unconditional love, and then the laws of that exchange. Because one of the things that I realized early on in my meditation is that I had no idea what love was. In fact, my idea was love was based on Disney, or the ideas of romanticism, these romantic ideas about love, which has nothing to do with what love is. In fact, love is very much a state of existence, and it's a state of holding frequency in the body in a way that is creation. Okay. And so, that harmonized state is something that allows the body to come into an optimum health. It allows the body to come into longevity. It allows the body, most importantly, to regain memory. You regain memory of your life, even the traumas that you've had, which sometimes the brain blocks out to preserve itself. But as you begin to cultivate this strong foundation of understanding of the 0 point, which means that you are all and nothing simultaneously, those memories now become compassionate awareness and understanding of the bigger picture of things. And this is what it means to heal. You become whole. You heal yourself as a whole. And that is also what it means to activate DNA, because you take yourself out from this very myopic view, this little tiny experiencer that is at the cause, at the of other things, the external things. The world is happening to you. We come into victim mentality, and to shift that into creation, where you are now making things happen. You are now creating. You are, causing an effect on these things. So that kind of changes the way that your entire body holds life force in all these dimensional realms.
Right. Can I ask you real quick, when you're talking about healing, so I was brought up to my attention was that when you're doing like the shadow work or the dark night of the soul, when you're going back through all these memories,
Yes.
they say that the reason why when we get old, a lot of people get chronic illnesses, like say Parkinson's or MS or say whatever it might be, it's because they never did any shadow work. And all those things in your mind that you do lock away in that little box, somehow that stuff comes back to you when you get older and creates that chronic illness, whatever it might be. Is that true, or
Well,
in
yes,
your experience?
absolutely. In a way, all illness and all physical imbalances have a somatic root. And illness is the disharmony of the organism. And that means that the organism lives in separation. They have a hard time integrating mind, body, and soul. One of those are disintegrated. They are not able to understand themselves as all three. And so when this happens at any stage in the life, it creates fractalization of themselves, which essentially breaks this multidimensional body. We literally, let's say we have a thought form of unworthiness that starts at a very early age. This continued repetitive, remember, that's a neural pathway. And we strengthen that neural pathway by repeating events that reinforce that belief system.
Right.
That's a vibrational frequency in the body. And what happens energetically is that when you continue to reinforce that, your entire body is adjusting to the form of that thought. And so what that means is that multidimensionally, we literally create holes, tears, breaking the multidimensional body. We have many layers of the body, which are holographic fields that are vortex holograms that are created from every chakra. Okay. And so when this program is experienced by the person, they might relate that to their survival. They might relate that to their worth. So let's say the root in the heart chakra is deeply impacted by that. So the root and the heart layers of your body begin to become thin, damaged, and then cracked and open. And your frequency shifts. Remember that you are a whole system, and every one of those layers participates in a hertz, let's say a hertz of a collective frequency of yourself. So as you begin to lower the frequency of your body, you become in alignment with certain things that are in alignment with that frequency. And so this stagnation, the rips and the tears of the body, then become a sponge for like energy. And over time, that crystallizes in the body over and over time, solidifying into the physical body as a stagnation of energy and a blockage of energy. And that's what illness is. Okay. So in the same way that you can create illness like this in the body, you can also reverse it. And this is what we do in DNA reprogramming every day in sessions and hypnotherapies, that we want to access the root cause of the emotion to begin to remove these blockages out of the body and open the energy, because we are a very We are a very intelligent, self-organizing system. And when you begin to bring it back into harmony, the body can heal, the body can open up, the body comes into this higher intelligence. So
what does a session look like? Because you got me interested. I might actually have to come over to you and try this for myself. But for the viewers watching, what would they expect for this type of healing experience?
yeah, so a DNA reprogramming is basically I walk you through deep shadow work. And I'm, of course, intuitive and I can see your multidimensional body. I merge with your body, which means that I feel everything that you feel and I get the memories and the images that you're also tapping into through your frequency. And so what that allows me to do, and something I want to mention is that my healing sessions and what I want to focus on is for you not to depend on me, but for me to teach you how to do what I do. And that's really important for me because that's why I have yeah, that's why on my YouTube channel, I really focus on sharing the information of how to do this work, how to cultivate your intuition so that you can heal yourself. And so the session is designed in that I'm walking you through all the foundational core of energy cultivation, but at the same time, we're getting into the deep roots. And we walk in through the emotions. We take the emotions into the root cause, we unpack those memories and we reintegrate those fractals. So what that allows you to do is to repair the multidimensional tears. Sometimes those tears are there for years, you know, and it really, it creates a very lasting change because we're working with the subconscious mind. So next time they're triggered by a similar scenario, you don't have, now you are equipped with the information of how to not respond in that same way. And we do by programming the body to feel and the opposite of these belief systems. Because one of the important things about healing that I noticed is that, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't know what love was. I didn't know what that felt like. I didn't know what that looked like in communication. What did that look like in relationships? You see, we have to learn that. As much as it's reinforced through films, media, music, we have to learn the opposite, how it is to really embody these emotions. So one of the most important parts of the healing is that you learn to feel and recognize how that is mind, body, and soul. And that's what causes a new neural pathway to form. And the intention is for you to reinforce that neural pathway moving forward.
Yeah. So you have to essentially do the work. You do the healing session, and then when you become aware of, you know, the flaws, so to speak, now that you're aware of why and how it happened and what causes those emotions, then you have to work on those to repeat the cycle to create those new neural pathways.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, and that means that we have to come into mindfulness awareness in the present moment. Gurdjieff talked about it as remembering the self. You know, many practices talk about being in the present moment. And I created an acronym called GPAC, which is a very easy but also advanced energetic awareness that is about grounding, but literally being fully embodied in your physical body, fully aware in the observer state. Protection, which is about learning how to own your energetic space, understanding that you create everything in this field, and understanding that you always have a choice of what you allow to engage. And this is extremely important in this dream state as much as it is in all the other dream states, because that's how we end up, you know, in parasitic exchanges, you know, without you understanding that. And in alignment, working with the main projectors of your reality, which are your chakra bodies. Your chakra bodies are your emotional system, your program processing system. They are connected to your endocrine and the bioelectrical, biochemical systems of the body. So every emotion is a bioelectrical charge. So because we are in this bioelectrical hologram, you know, we are forming our experiences by reinforcing those charges. So we have to be aware of those emotions. And then finally, co-creation, which is using your crown, the crown chakra, which not many people talk about, but the crown chakra is the center from which the non-physical becomes the physical. And so we need to use this. We need to learn how to use that correctly, because we want to break karmic contracts of repetitive ancestral cycles. That's what we are here to do in this little limited 100 years that you come to incarnate, is to be conscious enough to end those parasitic cycles that emerged through you as you and repeating from your ancestral lineage into formulating a new human, essentially, that we are all gently invited to co-create.
So
as we
becoming the third, as you would say.
Exactly, exactly, exactly right. Yeah,
I always tell Natalie that we're breaking ancestral curses.
that's right.
Hey, could I ask you real quick? Next week I have a session with a friend of mine that does something called SCHH. Is that the same? Do you know what that is, by any chance?
HH, no, I don't know what that is.
Well, she said
SC.
it's basically like an energy clearing for like negative energies. Let's say you have an addiction, or I'm going in for smoking cigarettes, right? So it's basically that to take off essentially what you were just saying, to take off that trigger. I would guess it would be that energy that comes in and makes you think about, hey, when this happens, now I got to go smoke, or I got to go do this, right?
Right, right.
So that's essentially what you were talking about, right?
Yes, it is. I'm not familiar with this modality, unfortunately, but I know that hypnosis works extremely well for smoking cessation. It's one of the things that I do as well. But essentially, any kind of healing that you can do that can access the subconscious mind and the emotions will help you break those habits. But it's very important to make sure that you are supporting. So whatever they're removing, that you also learn how to support the new habit.
Like
and
filling in the gaps, so to speak, rather than leaving it empty.
Important. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you suggest for that? Filling in the
Well,
gap.
I'm not sure what kind of modality this is or what they're doing exactly in this session, but if whatever they are removing, try to intuitively tune in to what's being removed. And I don't know if they're going to get into that with you. Notice the emotion that is triggered. Once you identify what's being triggered, what would be the opposite of that? And then get yourself extremely familiar with what that looks like, literally embodied in your everyday life. That's where you process and trigger the reprogramming element of healing. Because you have to be able to use this as a formula so that any time that the sensation comes on, to want to smoke again, that you have something in your pocket to be able to embody immediately.
Counteract that feeling, that energy.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Oh wow. Yeah, not to bring you back back and forth, but with the hybrid children that you've mentioned, one, how many do you have? And two, do you have any kind of an emotional attachment? Like, can you connect to each other whenever you want, and that kind of thing? Like if you meditate?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a pretty big topic, but
Would you be able to maybe take us through the experience?
yeah. So do you mean how does the hybridization function? How does it function? Okay. So the hybridization program works like this, and this is generally for, and I will explain the woman's side of it, but there's also the male side of it as well. Okay, so it starts off with an experience or a memory of implantation, in that they will have a dream where they are taken, or they will have an experience where they are taken and something is inserted, sometimes as an implant in the body. And usually the location for the implant is around the neck and the extremities, and then sometimes the internal organs or sexual organs specifically. Okay, not all of these experiences are for the hybridization program. Some of these can be healings. Some of these can be contractual agreements for exploration. Some of these can be exchange of information between you and these beings. The next part of this is insemination, and that this is specifically related to the hybridization program. And this is where the male or the female may or may not have dreams of the sexual nature, whether they are being paired with another human being that they know or do not know in this environment of either a craft, or it can be some kind of fantasy scenario of some kind. The exchange of sexual energy in whatever form is part of the hybridization program, okay? And then for the male, there will be an extraction of their DNA, and for the female, it would be an extraction of an egg or insemination. Okay, so any one of those scenarios can present themselves. Now, the whole element of intercourse is very important in the hybridization program. How it happens sometimes is skewed by the perception of the person, and depending on their trauma, their sexual trauma that they have, it might change the way that they experience what they have. Okay, sexual trauma specifically. The more nefarious, darker programs focus specifically on creating trauma around the experience, because that's a vibrational frequency signature. And also, one of the most powerful ways to refract a human soul is through sexual trauma, which is why it is very prevalent in our society. The same beings that navigate these, waters of sexual trauma and fractalation of the soul are also participants in government hybridization programs. Okay, there are also government hybridization programs separate from that sexual trauma, but also in connection to those. The government has their own cloning program.
I was going to say, is that because, so just to add to that, so you said to fractal, so that's what I was saying to Jimmy on the last podcast with Daryl. I was saying, because I heard from you saying that you fractalize the soul, and part of those fractal versions of you can go into a clone because the clone needs a soul to operate. Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Like that. So a clone specifically would be almost an exact replica or a frequency off of a replica of your organism. Okay, that would be a clone. And they do create them, and they're not all physically in this dimension. They are sometimes utilized in other dimensions, like these MK Ultra programs, these 20 and back programs, these super soldier programs. They become fractals of the human, and they may only appear as memories.
Right.
Okay, but this is a manipulation in a sense of yourself, in the bigger picture, because there is a profound belief of fractalization within oneself. This is used a lot by these parasitic aspects of ourselves. Okay, and then of course, in the hybridization programs that are the Earth programs, okay, which is, we have a child here on the Earth. Okay, the child, that is part of the hybridization program as well.
Oh.
And there is a self-organizing intelligence to every single human that we participate. The place of birth, our origin, our cultural background, our ancestral lineage, all participates in defining your participation in the hybridization program. And we don't meet anyone randomly.
There is no free will.
In fact, many of the cases of people in history, when you begin to study these hybridization programs in history, they seem to be quite orchestrated. And that also seems to be something that is very much used by the control systems. The whole concept of pure divine lineages, bloodlines, originated from this concept of the hybridization program, in the idea that if you combine certain groups of it, because DNA is information, it's a currency. When you combine certain groups, you are broadening the pool of data that is available. Why? Because DNA is a portal. DNA is a portal into the many lineages of information that one human can be made up of. So a human can have gray DNA, Arcturian DNA, Pleiadian DNA. This other person can have reptilian, Pleiadian, gray DNA. When you merge them, now the third has access to all of those ranges of information, all of those memory banks of information. So this is really important to understand, because what it is memory is the cultivation, the integration of the whole. We all have fractals of everything within us, but this program is about intelligently merging portals through human souls in order to access information to create kind of a collective harmony in the bigger picture of things. Okay, so when we zero down on it, these programs might seem really nefarious, really terrible, but what I have understood in the bigger picture of this is that there actually is a certain harmony to this in the bigger picture. In fact, there is as much dark as there is light, and we are always moving through those in order to sustain this holographic system. The one that gets to choose the participation is the participant. Okay, so you can live in this matrix as long as you want. You can incarnate back in here all you want, if you know how to become entangled with it again and again and again. How do you become entangled? Emotions. Those bioelectrical charges that strengthen the cords, connections to people, places, and things. And our children are the number one entanglements. So your question, James, about whether I connect with them, given this understanding, the higher alchemy, the higher implementation of alchemical laws would be that if I become a conduit of life force, my intention is that my children, wherever they are interdimensionally, also are raising in their vibrational frequency. And something that humans have the potential of doing is working with experiential agreements. So we have agreements, and we may not remember when or how we make those agreements, at what point we have made those agreements to create these children. We also might not be clear about the intention behind them until we wake up consciousness. That's why it's important to become lucid in dream state. So you understand, why did you create that child? What's your purpose of that? But as a natural law, when I wake up consciousness and I raise my frequency, their frequency also becomes conscious and also raises. So even though the intention of these more parasitic exchanges can be to create a child that is created in fear and trauma, through my healing, I can affect that child and that organism. And that's what it means to be a healer, right? Is that
And
you
like a quantum entanglement itself between you and your child?
Absolutely. I mean, just biologically, a mother and child, they share DNA, and they have the cells literally within each other's bodies, which is how the mother can feel the emotions of the child, even if they're on the other side of the world. So this kind of quantum entanglement is this quantum non-locality that through the network of the morphogenetic field that interconnects us all, including these interdimensional elements in the dream states.
Oh, wow.
Right. What would be one of the ways in which we can become aware in our dream state? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so I teach a lot of advanced lucid dreaming courses on my website. So if anybody's interested, please do check it out. But there are several things that we can do. But the number one thing is that if you train yourself to become lucid in this waking state, it bleeds into the dream state. And I don't talk about these things just because I read them or look at them. They are things that I have experienced and practiced and do embody in my own life. One tool that I used is to get your phone and create several alarm clocks throughout the day that, they can just be vibrating and just reminding you to come back into your body and to ask yourself the question, who am I, where am I, what am I doing? Just bring yourself into this absolute awareness of where you are, who you are, and what you're doing. If you train yourself to do that, remember when you were a child and you go swimming all day, at night when you're in bed, you have the sensation that you're still swimming and floating in the water. So this is exactly what it's like, that if you train yourself to be constantly present, it will bleed into your dream state. So what happens is that you enter a dream and you begin to become conscious and you're like, oh, this is a dream. And so the next thing is that as soon as you become conscious in your dream state, train yourself through daily meditation practice in your waking state to cultivate a 0 point, the observer. Okay, and that's extremely important for being present. Okay, because we want to come out of that reactivity state into observer so that when we're in the dream, we don't get shocked or our frequency doesn't drop dramatically, because that's usually why people can't go into their lucidity, that their frequency will shift immediately and they will come back into their body and they will go into another dream state, immediately. So try not to practice that state of non-judgment in 0 point. And a great practical way is Vipassana meditation. Okay, that will help you learn how to regulate nervous system and begin to grow gray matter, which creates a strong foundation for grounding in the body. And third, once you wake up consciousness in that dream state, try to practice not applying any meaning necessarily, or having to define or judge what you're experiencing, because it'll limit your ability to go beyond the human mind, because we have so many filters, not only filters of ourselves, but filters of other things, that it limits our ability to see something beyond our known understanding. So that would be, you need to become friends with the unknown, little by little, as much as possible.
Become infinite, basically.
Exactly. Infinite potential, become friends with infinite potential. And that requires the cultivation of compassion for both yourself, most importantly, that you are not coming into stress states, you're not coming into fear or anxiety or feelings of helplessness. So as you can see, waking up consciousness in lucid dream is very much the cultivation of the higher human that is cultivating his higher faculties. And that's extremely important, to train your intuition.
Well,
I actually came out of my body before, and I got all the way up to the ceiling, and that's what it was. Is I got scared. Like, I almost say I was scared, but my heart rate came up, because I'm thinking, it's like, man, I'm really floating. I've never seen that before. And just as I came up, I just came right back down in my body, because I just was like, oh my God, like, it was like I couldn't keep myself grounded, like you said, because
Yes,
so I guess you just got to
exactly.
get used to the fact that anything can happen, at any time.
That's right. That's right. And so meditation is really important. Please meditate at least an hour a day. Please try to find time, make time, to meditate at least an hour a day, because it will transform your relationships, it will transform your health, it'll transform many parts of you. And it's important that humans focus on that in this era that we're coming into right now, because we're coming into an accelerated state of transformation for humanity. And it is very required that we become familiar with interdimensional elements of humanity, because we are very much going to come into that.
Would you say meditate with headphones, frequencies, or just in our own space?
Absolute stillness. Train yourself to be in silence and stillness, because all of those techniques are fun and great, but at the end of the day, your shadow work and the integration of your connection to yourself, mind, body, and soul, is, you cannot replace that with anything, even psychedelics, anything, because there is a cultivation of you're a geometric structure, you're a frequency, there's a architecture to you. So we have to learn how to cultivate that, and you are creating new neural pathways which are not strengthened with quick fixes, like external stimulations. In fact, sometimes they distract you away from that.
Yeah. So let me ask you, like, okay, so going off what you just said here, so my ultimate dream in this reality before I
Yeah.
leave here is to be able to sit in a chair and not worry about those distractions that are out there, not need to drink something or smoke something or whatever it might be, not worry about the weather, whether it's too hot or cold, just be able to sit in a chair and be content. Now, how do you train your brain for that if you got 40 some odd years of living in, chaos like we live in?
Yeah. So basically, first of all, we have to not judge. Okay. So first of all, the current state that you're in, we're even judging that. We judge that, we judge the other. It's like constant judgment. So a lot of your energy, a lot of your life force, you have to understand we are cultivators of life force. A lot of the life force is depleted. You become a centrifugal spin. Okay, so you're a vortex. Everyone is a vortex. When you become a centrifugal spin, all your life force is depleted from you. We become weak, ill, disconnected, and not a creator, basically. So, number one, regain your life force. Be very mindful where your thoughts are, where your intentions are. Understand that what creates your reality is the subconscious mind. So, for example, let's say we're sitting down trying to relax, and all of a sudden we get this feeling of insecurity, doubt, and we want to run away from that emotion because we categorize it as negative, and immediately we want to go get a cookie or something like that, and that will help. Just that tiny little thing. And mind you that when we have these parasitic thoughts, this is our own expression of parasitism, but literally your microbiome, which has parasites as well, is participating in that. And the more parasitic you are to yourself, the more you cultivate an environment for parasites in the body that are very prone to addictive behaviors. Okay. So, for example, it has to be an entire reconnection with the self to hold yourself in uncomfortable states,
Yeah.
uncomfortable
Those damn
emotions.
cookies.
Yeah, those cookies, which we all love them. But to hold yourself in those uncomfortable states in a non-judgmental way will be amazing to begin. Okay,
Yeah.
just that tiny simple practice. If you do that for 30 days, I guarantee you next month will be a completely different story. Because you are deprogramming, because remember, you're a biochemical, bioelectrical system. So your addictions, we're addicted to everything, television, patterns, sounds, musics. It's biochemical responses. So we have to help the body change that. Now, another thing that I can invite you to do, and this is what we do in DNA reprogramming, but you can do it, you can cut to the chase, just a quick cheat sheet, is that every moment that you begin to come out of into a state of discomfort, fill your body with love, as if you were holding a beautiful puppy or a little kitten. You know, that warmth and that love that begins to emerge. Imagine that you're going to do that with yourself, and try to sustain the practice. And this, of course, goes in alignment with gratitude practices, which are similar frequencies, right? If you can, when you're taking a shower, especially, water is a conduit. It's a conduit of energy. So when you're washing your body in the shower, even if it's a 5-minute shower, you do it mindfully, connecting to every part of your body. You are grounding yourself. You bring yourself fully into the body. And the sustained repetition of that takes you out of survival chemical and replaces it with a chemical that is more conducive to stillness over time. So you're kind of biohacking yourself in order to sustain peace. Okay?
Let me just quickly add in there. So a lot of spiritual teachers, so to speak, in the spiritual reality are talking about, spiritual community are talking about grounding with the earth. Is the way you're explaining grounding makes so much more sense to me, just being in the body, being present in the body, but not to have to be forced to run outside and stand in the grass with no shoes on. Do you know what I mean? So
Yes.
do we have to do that, going outside and stand on grass or whatever?
Oh, you see, and that was one of the things that's so important, because um, when you go stand out on the grass, there's a bioelectrical shift that happens in the body, which is extremely important. And we should aim to do that at least sometime in your week or day. But aligning with the natural cycles of nature is what you're doing when you connect with the earth. Okay. And so what we want to try to do, what it means to be in harmony with yourself and to be in harmony with your environment, is that you come into alignment with the natural cycles and rhythms of the earth. And we need to cultivate that even in our own homes. I mean, we don't have time to go out there anymore. And that's very much an energetic field. So what you're doing, and this is what I do in my grounding GPAC, you imagine the center core of the planet, and you imagine that you're wearing a bodysuit that is anchoring you to that center of the earth. And essentially you become one with the earth. And remember, you're basically spinning on the globe of the earth, right? So the earth is like this, and you're basically spinning on the globe of the earth. You're deeply connected with that. So the earth is our mother in more ways than we have time to talk about right now. But we are also deeply connected to the different planets of this solar system and deeply connected to the sun. The sun is connected to the heart center. Okay, so when we learn to clear our energy bodies, we are also clearing out the debris that block us from receiving information from this planetary system. And when you are connecting to the earth, you come into alignment in your sleep, and you create more melatonin, which allows you to produce DMT, which allows you to cultivate your intuition. Okay, and so these alignments with the earth, it also has to do with the regenerative times of the day that regenerate the different organs in your body. So the more that you connect with earth, the more that your body can begin to fall into harmony with all these natural systems of regeneration. And usually people that sleep, between 10 and 2 in whatever hemisphere you're in alignment with this system around you, the morphogenetic field, essentially. So yeah, there are many ways, and I mean, I could talk about this more in depth, but just as an overview, it's really important that we see ourselves as an extension of the planet Earth all the time, so that we can be open to receiving the downloads of this entire organism. Okay, essentially the human evolves into planets, evolves into solar systems, evolves into galaxies. That's what we are, and we have that encoded in our own organism as well. So we have to wake up consciousness and remember that that's what we are, not just this tiny fractal that's floating around in these experiences.
So, okay, going back again to this, I was told with the hybrid children is when they do come and they take you, let's say to get DNA from you and whatever, after they come back, say they would impregnate you, and then a few months later come back and get you again, take the baby out, right? And then they said after a few years or whatever it is, they'd have to bring the mother back again to integrate you with the child for another reason. Now, did all that happen as well? They come back 3 times for every child?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't finish what I was saying earlier about the hybridization program, because we kind of got backtracked there. But so after these hybridization programs, the scenario of insemination, there is a presentation. Okay, and it doesn't happen for
That's what
every
they call
child.
it?
Well, it's called a presentation. Yes, exactly. Every human, man or woman, will experience that they have a dream or a memory that a child is being presented to them. Okay, this happens for both men and women. Now, not everyone remembers all parts of this hybridization program. Most people have maybe one memory of one of these categories, or 2 memories of one of these categories. And then the final part of that, of the presentation, usually the human can choose to interact with these beings or not, but usually there's an activation that occurs after these encounters, where the human has the opportunity to remember. In my personal experience, my presentation happened 2 times consciously. One time when I was a child, I had a reoccurring dream over the course of years, maybe from 5 until 8, that from a white light, my mother would come out of the white light holding a little blonde girl with giant, strange eyes. And I thought as a child that would be my future sister. Or, I was thinking maybe she'll divorce my father and have this blonde little child, or maybe that was my future child, And in 2013, when I was taken on board craft and I was introduced to these hybrid children, these were Pleiadian rays, and they took me to the Pleiades. They showed me the Pleiades. They showed me myself as being a Pleiadian. And then they introduced me to these children. And the children were, I thought at the time, Pleiadians will be humanoid in the way that it's presented to us, in many ways. But these were actually half human, half reptilian, half human, half grays, these incredible bodies and just eyes, just incredible organisms that are not 100% human, but really beautiful and incredibly intelligent and intuitive. Communication is telepathic. And so what that is about is an imprint, a vibrational imprint that occurs when we meet, because I connect with the child and I began to remember all of the memories of the times when I had been on board craft, holding babies, giving birth, feeding, connecting with them in previous times, which I had never had those memories at that level before. So that happens for
a lot of old stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. And this is very common in the hybridization program. Both men and women begin to recall their memories after having this presentation. Yeah, and I think that's it for that. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you so much.
I was going to say, to finish the podcast, could you share something, a positive message for the viewers watching today?
Yes. So it's really important that you train your intuition. Please train your intuition. We are moving into a new phase for humanity, but this new phase, in the old world, it was about survival. It was about instincts, primal instincts. In this new phase of humanity, it's about intentional co-creation, which means that you understand that you are creating with every part of you. And so that requires some responsibility. That requires a deep understanding of karmic laws, or cause and effect. And so the more compassionate and loving you are towards yourself, and you ask yourself every moment, what would someone that loved themselves do in this moment? It will change and reframe the way that you even perceive circumstances. That is more compassionate and healing to yourself. So this is an invitation that I really hope to invite you into, and to understand also that the unknown is infinite potential, and to become friends with the unknown as much as possible. Move away from fear, move away from separation in yourself, and then begin to experience that in the external. And of course, if anybody needs help with that, please do check out my YouTube channel, and you can work with me at any time, and I'm here to serve. And thank you so much for having me on today's show.
Yeah.